Have an illustration of the cross, and we were going to take a little break, but we took too long on our first break, so okay, so I want you to be thinking about one of you as a couple, if you will volunteer to help me with this illustration. Okay, so what it will involve is for you to kind of be open, transparent, and be able to be thinking about identifying where you put up a wall between you and your spouse. Okay, and we're going to call that wall our false self. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about. So just kind of be thinking about that. So I'll actually need 8 volunteers, 1 volunteer couple, and then 3 women and 3 men to help with the second part of our illustration. Okay, so the first part is you see up here a cross, and then a purple cloth, which is kind of purple signifies royalty. In this case, it's going to signify grace, okay, the grace of God. And then a circle of a red rope. And that is, we're going to call this the circle of God's love, because that's what we're talking about today, okay? So in this circle, you know, we come to Christ through the cross. He gave his life for us to wash away all of our sin with his blood. So we come to God through Jesus Christ, through the cross. And the Bible says, for by grace are ye saved. Okay, so it's by God's grace that he pursues us. He draws us to himself. The Bible says that Jesus will draw all men to himself. And it's through God's grace. And that's all encircled within the sphere of God's love, sphere of God's love. Okay? So when we think about a marriage relationship, when we are in the circle of God's love and operating within this sphere, our relationships are going to be better. I'm not going to say they're going to be perfect, because we're human. We deal with sin daily, right? And all of these things that we've grown up with, they come into our marriage as extra baggage. But we can deal with them within the sphere of God's love by his grace. When we step out of that sphere, we move away from Christ, we move and resist God's grace, we'll have more problems. We won't be able to deal with our problems. They'll get bigger. We'll grow farther apart. All right? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about with the sphere of the cross. All right, so when we step out of the sphere of God's love, that's when we put up walls, or we embrace a false self. All right? So what do I mean by a false self? Well, it's illustrated with, well, first of all, in Ephesians chapter 4, the Bible tells us that we are to put off the old man. So you can think of the false self as the old man, okay? When we're saved, we're to put off the old man, or our nature, our sinful nature, or our fleshly nature, and put on the new man, which is, you know, the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit indwelling within us. And by God's grace, we're now living life, okay? So the false self is that old man. So the things that we put up as a defense against getting hurt, you know, there are hurts in life. I always tell our children, life is not fair. It's not fair. But God's grace can overcome that, okay? But when we're not living in the sphere of God's love and accessing that grace, life is going to be hard. And when we live within that false self, or we embrace it, life is going to be hard. It's just going to be hard. We're not going to have answers. We're not going to be able to, you know, be relational with a spouse who may also be living a false self or living within a flesh-driven life, okay? So I'm just going to have to get my notes. I'm sorry. It's kind of babbling on here. Stay on track. Okay, so where did the false self, or where did we first come into contact with the old man? Okay, you remember in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, right? So Eve was deceived by Satan. She partook of the fruit. She gave to Adam, and he ate. And we had the fall of mankind into sin, right? Well, at that moment in time, we lost some very precious things. Okay, number one was innocency, right? But these are also things that we need as human beings to survive. So they're things that are real deep, sincere desires in life. Okay, so what kind of things am I talking about? We lost truth, fellowship, joy, peace, our security, love, fullness, our purpose in life. Okay, many other things we lost with the fall as well, but we lost those things. So as people living lives, these are desires that we have, and they're legitimate desires. The problem is, how do we try to fulfill that desire, okay? So we have these deep wants, and we become fearful that they won't be fulfilled, okay? And because of that fear, we're driven to put up false selves or to embrace the old man, okay? When we live with a false self, we're sending a message to our families, okay? So if I'm putting up a false self, I'm sending a message to my husband, and he's perceiving that, you know. Let me give you a example. Okay, so if I put up a false self, like, say my husband did something, it really made me feel insignificant, so I go into this I'm not talking to you mode, okay? I withdraw, all right? What message am I sending to my husband? What is he perceiving? Can you give me an answer? I didn't coach him on this.
You don't love me.
I'm saying to you, you don't love me, or I don't love you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it could also mean, I could also maybe be sending the message, I don't need you. You hurt me, so I don't need you. Actually, that's more if I'm independent. So if I put up the false self that, well, I'm just going to do it on my own. I'm just going to be independent. He won't help me, so I'm just going to do it. I'm sending the message, I don't need you. I can do it myself, okay? What does that do in a relationship? It doesn't help, does it? It really hurts. So, you know, my husband hurts me, and I hurt back by putting up this false self, okay? At that moment, am I living within the sphere of God's love? Am I accessing the grace that God has for me to respond to my husband in a kind, respectful, loving way? I'm not, am I? So that's what I'm talking about, all right? We put up these walls to defend ourselves from further hurt, and we also, you know, let's get a jab in there. He hurt me, so I'm going to hurt him, okay? That really destroys a relationship within a marriage, okay? Also, one of the things from the fall of man Men now, I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions, but basically men now are driven by, they seek their identity in doing, okay? Like my husband. You know, he could do all these things at church. People just thought he was marvelous. He could do all these things at work. He was like, you know, Superman. But at home, we were just like, you're just not getting it. You're just not cutting it here, you know? And so, you know, everything is driven by do. That makes me important in life. That's my identity, okay, for a man. For a woman, we now look to our husbands for our identity, okay? This is the curse of the fall. Man was to make his living by the sweat of his brow, okay? Do. And the Bible says that we will now have a desire toward our husbands. So, you know, we look for our identity that's rooted in our husbands. So if our husband doesn't feel like we're a significant part, or we don't have a significance in life, where's our identity? Right? That's why I say I lost my identity. Okay? Okay, we can pass that. Okay, so because of the fall of man, we create a false self to fulfill that desire, right? Rather than going to the foot of the cross and accessing the grace of God to help us, for God to fulfill those desires in His prescribed manner. Okay? I want to just give you a few things that describe what a false self is. These are basically 10 statements about the false self, okay? And one thing to keep in mind is when we're living in our false identity, okay, it's false. It's not real. The old man, that false self, was crucified with Christ. So Galatians 2:20 says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live, I live. I'm forgetting the last part of the verse, but it's through the grace of God, okay? So these are just 10 statements about the false self. The false self is all about self-protection, okay? We just want to protect ourselves from hurt, protect ourselves from, you know, our reputation. That was another really big thing with my husband, was his reputation. So like when we were at church or on deputation, and he said this to me a few times, not a lot, but a few. Don't ever tell anyone that we don't have a good marriage, or that, you know, the kids aren't happy or whatever. Like, in other words, don't ever talk about what goes on at home. I lived in that fear for a long time. But the Lord helped me get past that no, I need to say the truth. We need to face it, and it needs to be dealt with, okay? But the false self is all about protection. One of my big problems is owning up to something that I didn't do. Okay, so like, this is just a real life today example. So my husband has asked me several times to shorten the length of his slacks, and I still haven't done it. But if he says something to me about it, I'll get upset. Like, why am I getting upset? He just politely asked me to do it. It's my fault I haven't done it, but that's a self-protection. So I feel like he's saying to me, you're not a good wife, you haven't fixed my slacks yet. That's not at all what he's saying, but see how quick I can revert to that. Okay, so that's a self-protection, okay? This false self doesn't have a soul. If you don't have a soul, then that makes you not responsible, right? So we put off responsibility. The self-life is dedicated to living a lie, okay? We're living what we think we want to be, where it's not. We're not living in truth. And trying to live up to that makes life become very difficult. The self-life is self-centered. It's all about self. Total selfishness. We have no regard for anyone else. It's all about me, protecting me, getting what I want, serving myself, okay? The false self acts out as a weapon. Like I said, it's a shield from further hurt and a sword to hurt others. The false self builds walls, so we come with layers of walls, and trying to talk to someone like this, okay? In other words, we become very guarded with our emotions and our feelings. The false self does not and cannot trust. We can't trust God because our further statement is we have to be in control of life, right? So we don't trust God, we don't trust others. You know, if we have a project, we have to be hands-on. We can't trust that anyone else is going to do it right or the way we want it done. You know, we can't trust that people are going to keep their word to us. We're always monitoring what they're supposed to be doing. The false self says no to God. No, I don't want God's grace. I don't deserve God's grace. God's grace won't help me because it won't get this done right now. Okay? And the self-life is all about being in control. Okay? We have to control the situation. All right? So what we want to do now is so now I've told you what the self-life is there a couple that is willing to share with our group here 3 things or 3 ways that you act out the false self. So just an example is withdrawing, being a perfectionist, being independent, being a good girl or a good boy. Okay? Do we have a volunteer couple? No? How about you two? All right. So if you want to just come up here, and we'll put Peter on this side. If you want to, yeah, just step back and you can step back there. Okay, and now I just need 3 volunteers to act out their false selves. All right, so do we have 3 women that would just come up and help us? And they'll tell you what to do. Okay, you don't have to, you just have to do it. Thank you. 2 more? Great, okay, we have our 3, great.
You want them down this line?
Okay. Okay, so if you ladies will just line up here.
Me facing?
No, you stay back and you're gonna line up in front of Tabitha. Oh, great, we already have 2 guys. One more? One more guy to help Peter out here?
I need help, guys.
Okay. Okay, and you're gonna
Some support.
you're gonna line up right in front of Peter here. Okay, and can you hand me the blue notebook, please? All right, so we'll start with Tabitha. Tabitha, I can give you some choices unless you have a false self that you...
I think the ones you mentioned are me.
Okay, all right, let me just read some and then you can pick 3 of them, okay? So some examples of false self are, I'm going to be the judge, I'm going to be the controller, the people pleaser, perfectionist, the passive one, the good boy or good girl, the codependent one, addicted one, a liar, a Wonder Woman or a Superman, a rager, a critiquer, or the invisible one. So the way that those would be acted out would be like angry or anger, independence, a performer, a religious person, humble, okay? That can be a false self. Busy, blamer, controller, manipulator, predator, happy-go-lucky or like a clown, an expert, know-it-all, serving, invisible, liar, or tough. Okay, so give me 3 that you think that you act.
That I acted, busy. I'm forgetting the ones you mentioned now though, but can I look at it?
Sure, it's kind of scribbled there, right in the middle of the page.
Right here. Actually busy.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, busy.
yeah. Serve, is that serving?
Mm-hmm.
And then, what? Maybe Peter should answer these.
Do you withdraw?
I withdraw.
A lot of times.
Yes.
That's a
I
big
didn't
one
see
for
that on
women.
here, but that was one you mentioned.
Yeah,
yes.
okay. So busy, serving, and withdrawing. Do you have 3?
Thinking. I think people pleasing, you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Tab, help me out here. I think,
You can look at the list.
Do you want to look at it? So these are there, and then that's kind of how they're acted out.
I think the passive one
Okay.
at times, and
You
then
mentioned that.
the controller. I think in wanting being a perfectionist as it relates to myself and to other things. I think those would be 3.
Okay, so just say them again. People pleaser,
People pleaser,
passive, and controller,
and yes.
or perfectionist.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so remember those, okay, and then you guys remember those. Okay, so with Tabitha and the ladies, so who feels like they're busy? Because you can relate better to that. Busy? Okay, so you're going to represent the false self of being busy. And then the withdraw of you two. Okay, withdraw. Me. And then the third one, I forgot.
Serving.
Serving. Okay, so serving. Okay, all right. Okay, so what you're going to do, all right, so Tabitha, when you're being busy, what is it that you're not getting, that you're really wanting, but you're being busy because it's just not being fulfilled? To give you some examples,
I think maybe satisfaction.
okay, satisfaction. So you're desiring from your husband satisfaction. He's not fulfilling that, so you're just going to be busy so you don't think about it, okay? What about a time when you've withdrawn? What is it that you're really wanting from your husband and he didn't so his time.
Yeah.
Great, okay? And what about serving?
Maybe praise.
Praise,
Notice.
okay? All right, so when you're being busy, you really are saying, help me out, I forgot already, I can't believe this. Satisfaction, okay? So busyness is covering up for the satisfaction she's not getting from her husband. Withdrawing, she's not getting his time for her, okay? And that's legitimate, okay? It's not that these wants are not legitimate. We need these things in life, but it's how we go about getting them. That's the key. And then serving is praise, okay? So you ladies, help me out and remember that, because I'm not going to be able to do that. Okay, so the same thing for you, Peter.
Okay.
When you're trying to please people, be a people pleaser, what is it that you're really desiring in life?
I think probably praise or
Okay, praise.
respect in that sense.
Okay, so you're going to take the people pleaser in the next one.
What else do I have?
Passive.
Passive. I think sometimes the passivity can be, okay, you do it then. There's a little bit of whether that's a respect for authority or for leadership. If there is
Okay.
an independent spirit, then I may respond with, okay, fine, hands off.
So pushing away responsibility.
Yes.
Oops. Okay, so irresponsibility, you're not getting the help that you feel like you need from your wife.
Or maybe the respect for
Okay,
leadership.
respect.
Or whether it's respect or whether it's just a desire to lead, that when I don't
Yes.
feel that, then I may respond in that way.
Okay, perfect. All right, so who wants to be passive? Okay, all right, so, and remember that, okay? Remember that, because that's the desire that's not being fulfilled, but we're going to see in a minute that's not what it's saying to the other person, okay? All right, and then the last one, the perfectionist control. What is it that you're not receiving?
It may be excellence, or it may be a desire to really do well, or have this kind of, I'm not saying that very well.
So for me, it's I don't want to fail.
Yeah.
There's no
Okay,
way.
fear of
Yeah,
being
yeah.
a failure.
Yes, okay.
I don't
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's when you're going to be, okay? All right, so now, all right, this is going to get more complicated, okay? When you see Tabitha busy, 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 what is that saying to you?
We may not be aligned in our priorities for what I think is important or what we should be doing together. So
Okay.
I may see her running off and doing projects, and I'm saying, those don't seem as important as what I would like to be doing or what we should be doing together.
Okay, so she's saying really to you, she's disregarding what you seem, what you think is important, okay? That's the message you're sending to Peter when you're busy, okay? This is hard, that's why I said you have to be transparent here, okay? All right, when Tabitha withdraws from you, what is that saying to you?
It says something about love, but it says something about rejection, really.
Okay, that she's rejecting you.
Yeah, that there's this. Yeah,
Maybe
I
you
don't
want to love her, but
Yes.
she's rejecting your
Yes,
love,
yes.
okay? And what she's really saying is, I want your time. That was going to show me that you really love me, but you're not giving me your time. So go on, go do what you need to do, okay? But you see the messages, right? Her desire is not portraying to Peter the message. She's sending a wrong message, right? A negative message. And what about when she's just really all about serving?
Partly goes back to that busyness. I
Yeah,
think
they're kind of related.
They're kind of related,
with
but
one
it
another.
could also say, not concerned about me, because oftentimes when she'd be serving someone else.
Right.
Not necessarily looking at
Right.
my needs or.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? All right? And all you want is his praise, that, he sees your value, right? But that's not the message he's getting. Okay, now we're going to flip the coin here. Okay, so Tabitha, when Peter's being a people pleaser, what is that saying to you?
Maybe the feeling of he cares more about what other people think than I.
Okay? All right? Can everyone hear what they're saying? Because I'm not repeating everything. You can't. Okay, that's what I was afraid of. Okay.
I can talk about it.
Okay, let's just go back a little bit. So when Tabitha feels like, help me out, you say to me, when you're busy, what?
When I'm busy, I feel like I need, it's for satisfaction, maybe.
Okay, so when Tabitha just gets busy about everything, it's because she has this desire for satisfaction from Peter, whether it be whatever. She just needs that feeling of satisfaction, fulfillment. She's not getting it, so she just starts being busy about things. But when she goes into that mode of false self of busyness, she's saying to Peter, you're not concerned with what the things that I think are important. You're busy, but you're not busy about what I think we should be busy about, okay? When Tabitha withdraws, she's really saying to Peter, I want your time to show me that you love me. But when she withdraws, she says to Peter, the message that Peter is getting is, I'm trying to love you, but you don't want my love. You're rejecting me. Okay? When Tabitha is serving, she's usually serving other people. She goes into that false self of serving because she wants Peter's praise to show her that he values her as a person. But the message she sends to Peter by serving, is that it's going to usually be to other people. She's not going to be serving Peter, so she's not fulfilling what he needs. Okay? So now we're going to do Peter. So when Peter shifts into a people pleaser, he's wanting, tell me again.
Praise. Respect.
Praise. So he's desiring praise from Tabitha. He's not getting it, so he starts pleasing people, other people. So he's sending the message to Tabitha, you're not important. Okay? When Peter is passive, he's really desiring
Leadership, affirmation of leadership.
okay, the affirmation of his leadership as a husband. Tabitha is not somehow fulfilling that, so he goes into, okay, go do what you want to do. What is he saying to you, Tabitha, when he goes into passive mode?
To be honest, I think I know. But I don't always want to acknowledge that. I think I just want him to, I don't know. I think just the feeling of, I think he's telling me what he's saying.
So you actually understand that he's saying that I want you to acknowledge me as, fulfill the fact that I'm the leader of our home, the head of our home, but you don't want to acknowledge that at that moment. Okay. Okay, so that would be passive. So he's just going to put off his responsibility, but he's sending a message to you that, okay, I don't care, maybe. Does that sound good? Okay, and then how about being the perfectionist? Say again what that was.
A fear of failure, or a
Okay.
desire to have things done the way that I want them to be done.
Okay, so when Peter puts on the false self of being a perfectionist, it's because he has this fear of failure. Okay, so he doesn't want the world to know that he's going to fail, or he can't live up to, in his mind what he should be, or have things done the way he wants them done. But when he goes into that mode, Tabitha, what does that say to you?
Probably feeling like he doesn't care, or laziness, he doesn't want to do it maybe.
Okay, so the message he sends to Tabitha is he doesn't care, or he's just lazy about the way he wants things done. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to have you three ladies say to Peter what Tabitha is saying. Okay, so being busy, what are you saying?
I'm saying I'm not getting the satisfaction from him.
Right.
So
you're going to be saying that rather loudly, okay?
This is going to be hard, Brenda, I know. Do your best.
But you can leave town.
Okay, and withdraw, what are you going to be saying?
I'm saying that you don't really care about what I want right now.
Or, I need your time. I want your time to show me you love me. And you can just keep repeating that, okay? I want your time. It shows me you love me, okay? And you're going to say, I'm not satisfied. Okay, and then for serving,
It over and over.
over and over again, rather loudly, okay? And then you're going to be serving, so you're going to be saying,
I'm looking for praise.
I need your praise, Peter. I need your praise, okay? All right, so when we start this, I need you to say that over and over again, loudly, okay? And guys, same goes here, all right? So people pleaser,
I want your respect.
okay? I want your respect.
I want your respect.
Yes, rather loudly. Passive, you're going to be saying,
It's really similar. Once you acknowledge that, hey, I'm the leader of this home, and you give
yes,
me my input.
yes.
I'm the leader, yeah.
I am the leader, okay? And for you, the perfectionist?
I want this done right. And it needs
Exactly.
to be done
Great.
quickly.
Great. Great. Okay. All right. Now, Peter, when your guys are, they're going to move this way, so they're in front of you. You're taller than they are, so. But that's okay, because you can try to jump over them and get your message across to Tabitha. So you're going to be saying your real desire. Okay? And Tabitha, you're going to be expressing your real desire. All right? And we're going to see if you can communicate with one another.
Individually or just all?
All at once. Okay?
You're not doing the, I'm sorry, but you're not going to be doing the false self now.
Yeah.
You're going to be saying your
Yes.
real you,
Yes.
but these people are in your way. All right? Okay? So on the mark, get set, go. No.
I'm not satisfied.
Okay, time out, time out. How do you feel like it's going? Are you communicating your true message to one another? It's really difficult, isn't it? And that's what's going on in our souls, is all of this noise, okay? We can't communicate our real message. We're actually sending negative messages when we put up these false selves, okay? So how can we communicate our true desires? And again, they're legitimate, okay? This is the way God has made us. He's made us with a desire to be satisfied and fulfilled, okay? That makes us human. I mean, not human in a negative sense, but that just makes us, that's who we are, okay? But how do we get those desires fulfilled, okay? So we're going to do this exercise one more time, and now we have a decision to make. Who of Tabitha and Peter are going to go to the foot of the cross first?
Who does or who will?
Well, we could do it that way.
Peter, go ahead.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry. We'll start here, and then you're going to, okay? So say this is a day in their life, okay? The morning starts out, something happens in the morning, throws the rest of the day off with all of these false self cropping up, okay? What is going to call time out, all right? Because that's really what we need to do. Tabitha came and did a devotional for us at our church for one of her sisters, and she said that she made this little stop sign, a picture of a stop sign, and she said, stop. Stop, think, and pray. And that's so good. So what's going to say, okay, stop. Think about what's happening here. Take it to the cross, okay? So that's what we're going to illustrate, and we're going to see what happens. All right, so on your mark, get set, go.
I want some praise. I want some
Get it going, get it going. So then you go to the cross.
I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied. You're not satisfied.
So when Peter steps in the circle, you guys go sit down. No, you keep going.
I'm not satisfied. You're not satisfying me. I'm not satisfied. You understand? I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied. You're not satisfying me.
Keep it up, keep
You're
it
not
up.
satisfying me.
Okay, now Peter, what you're going to do is take that cloth and put it around Tabitha's shoulders.
I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied. You're not satisfying me.
Give you some praise.
And you can give her a hug too. And you ladies are going to go sit down. Yeah, you can. Okay, so this just kind of illustrates how can we become relational and stop sending negative messages be able to communicate what our true desires are and where they're not being met, okay? So what you saw was all of this noise, right? They can't communicate where they're not being fulfilled. Peter steps into the sphere of God's love, you know, at the foot of the cross. He takes up God's grace, okay? Remember, that's what the cloth illustrates. Embraces Tabitha with God's grace. So at that point, what did he have to do to get to Tabitha? Go right through all of this false self, right? That's exactly what God has done for us. He has crucified all of the false self. He does not acknowledge those false selves, those walls that we put up. He goes right for us, right for our hearts, right? And he says, love me with all your heart. Here's my grace. I'm embracing you with my grace and drawing us to him. And we might, you know, no, I don't want it, I don't want it. But eventually, when we give in to God's grace, all of that falseness goes away. And God can deal with us heart to heart, and we can grow. That's part of growing in God's grace, okay? I think that's, okay, so just encourage you to, you know, come to the foot of the cross. Christ is there. His grace is there. We just need to access it. Allow it to work in our lives, in our marriages, and in our families. Okay? Thank you.